No, so I think it's definitely important for me to evaluate, or at least to start by saying that in all of this, right, the key fundamental thing, because a lot of crazy things have been happening, right? And I think the key fundamental thing for me, or at least from my perspective of things, is to have who else knows, who knows who else has an appropriate understanding of events, of things, because I think that, but then again, that who knows scenario becomes very dangerous because it becomes very like should people be compensated for sharing knowledge and information, which is the normal standard way of approaching the situation. But I feel that given the dynamicness of time itself, right, it becomes quite like it's sort of like an emergency because shit just crazy right now. Um, so yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. In terms of everything, I'm just like lost in just not only thought but just like the whole dynamicness. So right now I'm just chilling, just having a drink and that, and I'm just contemplating my experience. You know, what I've been through in terms of like everything, and it's quite crazy. Like I'm just contemplating the journey that I've been on, and my experiences in that, which were many, right, from the norm. And then I'm just gonna talk about some of them tonight. I'll try not to forget, and I'll try to be accurate in my delivery of information. But I think that overall, the first thing that's important to express here is just the notion of like, who knows? How do people understand this reality? How do people comprehend things? Because there's so much information, and most of it is on a need to know basis, right? Everything is on a need to know basis, and if I don't need to know, I don't need to know, and if I need to know, I need to know, so I must know, and that information is revealed to me as it comes along. And because that there's different, even like just say comprehending the spiritual realm as it is very difficult, right? And even receiving information from that realm is difficult, and you will see things, right, and we still won't believe. And things will happen and we'll still find it difficult to believe the truth about this world, right? Or even about the spiritual realm itself, be it only what we define as the unexplained or the unmeasurable by standard, consensus. Though in itself it could be something that's completely different in terms of like, it could be biological, psychological, or some other means, right? That define the thing, but we ultimately group that thing into something that we call, spiritual or something like that. So that's that. But for me, it's just difficult, man. At least it feels difficult, but I think it becomes easier with time and with better understanding, and also understanding the issues within one's own self. Perception helps to better alleviate or make it easier to comprehend and understand for the most part. Okay, let's get into it. I think that where to start with this is rather complicated to a degree because, this is a special type of, or at least an important environment to cater into this. And as I always state, knowledge on a need to know basis, of which it's always expanding and improving over time. And my intention of expression here is to enable the correct understanding regarding just the nature of reality itself, right? Reality is definitely very obscured. I would start by saying, or boldly claiming, that the world in itself, right, we've always been confused about, is the world flat or is the world or is it a sphere? And I think that confusion is because there's a truth that's not being completely understood. Yes, the world is a sphere, is a sphere, but yes, the world is also flat. at the same time. So it's like, where is this confusion coming from, and how can we begin to fully understand and grasp its meaning overall? And I think that we can begin at, there's a curve caused by an elliptic by there's an elliptic curvature, right, caused by the sun and the way that it rotates. Though in itself, I think that to comprehend it in terms of how we perceive it as humanity is completely different. There's a film called Time Trap, which is okay. It's not too bad, but it sort of hints at this concept, and the understanding of the nature of it in terms of like how things are architected, and how this could ultimately function. But ultimately, yes, the world is sphere for the most part, from our perception of it and from our understanding of reality based on the physics that we have. But also, it's also flat in relation to other aspectual notions, right? Because it's like time that's split not only within particular bordered regions, but it's more so when you think about it from a perspective of the mind, because it's all in the mind. It's all in the mind, and that's where borders and stuff come in. Everything moves in the mind, which is one of the lessons that I learned through time, or at least in my recent adventures or my recent journeys, is that it's all in the mind for the most part. So the world is flat in our minds, but it's spherical on a physical plane, right? And I think when you take that into consideration, is where we begin. And then the borders and stuff is just a way of being able to mark out these aspects in consciousness and be able to define them in one nature or another. And I think that what I'm going to get into now is very sensitive in one aspect, and I'll try my best to outline the correct understanding, without trying to be insultive of anybody or of any peoples or nations. So we can begin here by looking at, Laios, right? Laios. And if we search here, definition for La. La. Let's see, in French, La, is there a La translation here? Okay, so it becomes, from a Spanish perspective. So there's two terminologies here. So La in Spanish is there, and La in French, unfortunately, is there. But here, okay, yeah, but then again, at the same time, I don't know what this article here is hinting at. Okay, yeah, so in French it can mean there and it can mean here, right? So this is Laios here, Laios, which means, from a Spanish perspective, the OS, right? The operating system, right? And I think that we would expect more. Most people would they'll probably expecting more. But nah, it is what it is. It is what you get from it, So it's the OS, the operating system, or their OS. So it's over there, their OS, there's the operating system, or it can be here OS or here operating system. So that's Laios, right? So it's the operating system in terms of the consciousness of something, right? This system that we're all inhibiting. A lot of people talk about how the world is like a virtual reality mechanism, etc. And so that's Laios, right? So we consider that as the base system. And then here we have Thailand, right? So from Laios, we get Thailand, we get Cambodia, and we get Vietnam, right? from that land bridge there. So you can basically like kind of like think of it like dual booting into an operating system. So, or at least dual booting an operating system, or we can consider it as virtual machines, right? So Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand, right? And this is obviously at the early stage or the early onset of all of this. And that's what ultimately we have here. But even if you look at if you look at some of the sites of Vientiane, especially this one here. Let me see if I can I open this. If you see this from above, it actually looks like let's see, can we okay, we're just gonna do this, and then we're not gonna do that way. What we're gonna do, we're gonna say we want to look at it from a, can I change the terrain view here? I don't want street view, I want from above, but I want it to be actually no, it's not giving me the exact. There we go. So we're gonna do this here, right? And then we're gonna zoom into it. It actually looks like a motherboard. Like it looks like the thing where you can put a central processor there. So that's number one, right? That's the central processor that you can actually use to interpret or understand reality, or at least it's like a motherboard. So these temples that you see here, historic 44M gold Buddhist stupa, multiple levels award enclosed in grassy courtyard, right? That's what that is. So that's the first thing to comprehend here. So yeah, so let's go back to back to layers, right? So yeah, so this is basically the OS. There's the operating system. The operating system is obviously the religion, or at least the Buddhist nature of it, and that's or mainly the CPU, right? The central processing unit. That's what defines aspects of that particular region and environment. And I'm not well versed in Buddhism and that type of thing, but I definitely it's something that I seek to explore at a later date in time to better understand and explore text and other things. Because I definitely believe that there's similarities between these texts, but those similarities are only expressions of truth. Right, so that's LIOS, the OS here, the operating system that powers this virtual reality, and we have Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand, which are kind of like virtual machines. Maybe you can think of them, or you can think about dual booting concepts of one nature or another. But so what we have to understand here is that we go from LIOS to which spawned Vietnam, which also spawned Cambodia, which also spawned Thailand, right? So if you think of them as kids in one nature or another, you can think of it as you have here after Noah's Ark, you have Noah, the OS, right? So the reality starts from there, and then you have Ham. No. Well, you have, I believe, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, or Japheth, Shem, and Hem, right? However way you want to particularly look at that, which I think is probably the key fundamental thing here. So that's how that part, if you want to interpret it in that fashion, maybe there's an encoded message there that you can extract from that. I'm not going to get too deep into it because I've really extracted or meditated on it to that level, which I'm able to actually appropriately determine or give true understanding of this. So that's pretty much it, really. So we have those there, right? And then what happens here is where the controversy comes, because especially for Thailand, right? I don't want to be that individual that's going to, because I'm not in Thailand anymore. Because I know there's going to be questions, right? These questions come up, right? Afterwards, these questions come up afterwards, right? In terms of like what happened ultimately, because we had the same thing in the previous in the couple previous videos where we spoke about the United Kingdom, right? And after that time, so following the UK aspect, we go straight to Laos, right? And then we go to Thailand, which is where my offset. So my offsets were pretty much set in Thailand, so that's where I arrived at. But there's all these other things going on, right? So before that, before we arrived to Thailand, we were definitely, it was before that it was Laos. So Laos was the land after whatever is happened, right? And then continuing onwards, we had Thailand. So what is important to understand that there's extremely big gaps of time here, but it's that if a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, doesn't make a sound, right? So it's the consciousness that actually powers the notion of time and the existence of it, which is something that I alluded to in the prior video I made when I was like, it's not all these spiritual entities have bodies, and people envy those people that have bodies. Like, humans are envied for that, for having that ability. But anyway, here we go. So we go. So these are actually time frames, right? These are time spectrums, right? So Laos is after whatever calamity, whatever happened, right? Whatever the notion is in terms of how these consciousnesses or these biological entities move from point to point and how they recognize, remember, etc. So memory offsets and things like that, right? So things taken into consideration here. So we have here, I'll definitely go deeper into it when I put it into text, but at the moment it's still, a hazy idea that one is still coming to the or receiving. So here to Thailand, to Thailand, right? And then Cambodia and then Vietnam, right? And we always ask this question of like, first and foremost, and and I don't want to be, because I'm not in Thailand anymore, I can then say things that I wouldn't usually say in Thailand, nor would I address the royal family in any sort of negative connectivity, because in Thailand we are not allowed to speak about them. So it's just one of those things where you just have a great level of curiosity as to how do I get educated accordingly about these people and who they are and etc. So I don't really have that knowledge or understanding regarding that. It's just something that I just didn't even talk about, or even even like express any form of opinion. But I just look at the images and this, that, and the other. But I don't really have it's something that I was very cautious about, and I felt as though that it's somewhat taboo to even think or comprehend while in that environment. And then so we have here, so there's that notion of like yeah, so that's pretty much it really. Because if, for example, right, like from Thailand, right, there's obviously another progression, and I think because I understand that Thailand, the next offset from there is Singapore, right? It's Singapore, and especially Malaysia, right? So that's what happens there. That's where the next offset, so the next section from there is. But then I'm afraid of that, because it then people can address the question as to what then happened to the royal family from that point onwards. And like I said, there are huge chunks of memory between these sections here, like giant amount of time between these sections here that no human can ultimately comprehend, and that's why we needed the coming together section to try to unify things in one nature or another. But I wouldn't say that because the answer to that question is I don't know, right? But what the universe has told me, right, what I've been told and what I've been given to give as a messenger, and I hope that the king doesn't falter me for this, nor does any particular aspect of that society falter me for this if they come across this information, because I intend to obviously revisit there and be there, and I don't want to get into a bad situation for saying things that are, you know, that are on connotation. But what time has shown me, right, or what the world, or what the spiritual world is shown me to deliver as a message, or at least to embed that understanding, what God has given me, is if you go on Surah Wang, yeah, and you look at and you just go Surah Wang, you walk up or walk down that road, you come across a Buddhist temple, and when you look at that temple, it's where that answer is, at what ultimately might have happened to that. And then so that's that, right? That's what I'm gonna say about that. And I don't want to get too deep into it, because it's what that message has been given as, in regards to understanding, and I can't go more in depth about it because I don't really know, and I can't really speak of a kingdom I don't know anything about, nor of a royal family I don't know about. But as a traveling, you know, I say want to be spiritualist, because I don't have that level of spiritualism to be able to term myself a true spiritualist. I would say that this is what the universe has silently given me as the answer, um, to what happens to those. Because even you know, it's just that, yeah. So that's pretty much it. It's not that to say that, you know, there's a timeline on the royal family and things of that nature, or whatever the case may be, but there's just that notion of 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 is the answer is there in that section, right? So in that Buddhist temple, or what I believe was a Buddhist temple, I don't know, I could be wrong, it could just be a specific design, but it's what the answer is, right? Because time progresses onwards, and etc. And it's not to say that, you know, and there's no limit, because what you have to also understand is there's massive gaps of time between these things here. So that's my understanding, and I hope I'm not faulted with this. I didn't address the royal family in any sense, or notion, or discuss them in a negative light, but I feel that it is a question that does come to mind when discussing things of this nature. But there's also things such as the Sumerian kings list that you can take into consideration to gain a deeper and better understanding. But it's not to say, because like, I think any royal, any it's a question that would arise, and I think that the best answer that I can give, without saying anything that might be seen as negative, is the Buddhist temple on Surah Wang. So Thailand will ultimately go off to Singapore, so and Malaysia, right? So these two are two separate environments, and I think that's where that split comes in between those that are devoted wholeheartedly to the royal family, and those who are more becoming external to the external world, and you know, and they're becoming less involved. And I think that's just one of those things that any king in history has had to deal with. But yeah, so that's pretty much that. So we have Malaysia and Singapore, and as you can see, Malaysia would have been those that were more royal to that particular royal family aspect, where Singapore was more so they're the other people, you know, who you know, I don't know enough about the people to say anything, but that's my understanding. So Thailand ultimately to Malaysia, and ultimately Singapore, with Singapore being the external facing aspect of it, and Cambodia went off somewhere over here to Japan. So that's what went down with Cambodia there. Cambodia became Japan, and Vietnam became China. Right, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There is other things that I can ultimately, like, we're probably wondering, like other countries I'm not going to touch on as of yet, such as Australia. You know, there's definitely other bits and sections here, etc. But yeah, that's pretty much it, really. So Vietnam to China, Thailand to Malaysia / Singapore, Cambodia to Japan, and those are the gaps, and that's basically the structure of time, and everything originating from Laos, right? And I think that in my training is just one of those things of seeing, because there's huge gaps here. Let's like, you know, they say that in the operating system, right? I'll get into. So in the operating system, a process, right? Be it a virtual machine or whatever the case may be, it has the it has the capability to state, right, that it sees its memory as it has a whole region of memory to itself, right? So a process imagines it as a whole region of memory to itself, but in reality, this is the concept of virtual memory and other such things, which you get into play. But again, if you imagine them as VMs and VMs, it becomes much more simpler and easier to ultimately comprehend. But that's the design of this. In a nutshell, right? And I think that that's a lot to take in and even begin to understand. And there were things there that were difficult for me to discuss or even express in a meaningful way. And you know, and there's just me trying to be cautious about things without the correct level of education to be able to understand the true history and the people there and the notion. But you know, it's I do understand that in Thailand it's the only place where people actually go to beef on elephants with elephants and things like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it, really. And it's in consciousness. So you know, if you know anything about China, right, this is where you start to understand about how long these concepts actually, you know, go in terms of like, you know, understanding in terms of time. Like China's been there for fucking ages, probably older than most places in this environment. But to even comprehend how Vietnam can go to that is incomprehensible, right? But I think that we are opening the stage up, right, time wise, right? It's these things that God is doing or the spiritual realm is doing. If you want to have access and better understanding of these, you have to be in tune with that level of spirituality to even begin to see or comprehend and receive these answers in a reasonable and meaningful way. But that's how just distant the times are. No one has the correct offsets. I had the offsets for Thailand, but that was before. But then the map is much more wider and bigger than one could ever comprehend, right? So no one has the true offsets, right, for this. No one has the true offsets of the correct numbers of actually, you know, the length of time and the period of conception in relation to what this is. So, for example, the Bible says 6,000 years, right? That's 6,000, that's 6,000 gigahertz. Tops, right? And I think that's the relevance that it holds. But when you comprehend this, it actually goes so much further, and it has a whole lot more depth. To it all, in my opinion. So yeah, so that's we got Laos there, and then we got Thailand, and I think it's also in Cambodia, and then Vietnam. Which Malaysia, I think definitely there was a split there between that particular notion of dedication to aspects of that. We have Singapore. We have with Singapore, and then I think that split there is probably what occurred through that. Malaysia, and then we have Cambodia to Japan. And then we have Vietnam, which also expresses some of the beef that these people have. So the Vietnam people have beef, like the China people have beef based on that notion of Vietnam. And I think that, everything, as you gotta understand it, is time that's moving forward, but time had to be put in a manner that we can all understand and comprehend until we're at the correct level of consciousness to be able to fully grasp exactly what it is that is going on and the meaning behind everything. And it's not gonna be as easy as we'd imagine or like it to be, but it automatically it is what it is. And that's pretty much it for now, I think. At least, and I'm alone in these thinkings, these understandings, but I think over time it becomes more clear. My intentions are ultimately, not to be evil in one sense or another, and the rules that we've been given to follow are those to keep us in the right line of thought, to be able to ultimately ascend to these understandings in the long run. Mongolia is another one. But hey, so what it is. But this is the thing that I'm comprehending at least. So maybe, from here we have these VMs, and then we actually have these applications like China, Malaysia, Singapore, and Japan. Like those are kind of like maybe applications running on top of these virtual machines. Now, can we have an impact, or can we influence higher levels from these lower levels? I don't know. And it's not to say that lower levels are just another level of abstraction, right? So we know that it gets more complicated the lower you go on systems, etc. But this is the notion, and this is what that's the importance of that. And yeah, that's my conceptual understanding, and that's my interpretation of that. So you can see this like post flood, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and then this is what they do and how they. You can also see like time is a bit more fake. So you can see, and then, you know, yeah, you can pretty much see also just the whole notion of like, when it comes to the law and stuff, all that type of stuff, in terms of all those other things and etc. It's all defined there for the most part. So I'll get into these other ones here for now. I'll leave them be. I'll just focus on these three, which I think that is vital. And I think that's pretty much it. And I think when you begin to understand this, you also begin to understand aspects of how I approach a lot of this. How I approach my thinking about these environments and these people, and my conceptual understanding regarding the majority of it. But that's pretty much it. Yeah. I hope that's logical to some degree, though it's quite difficult to comprehend. And it sounds like crazy madness, but it all has some relevance in the long run. And I find out that I hadn't actually pressed record. Wow. So all that screen things I was doing there, no record, bro. That's crazy, bro. It's crazy.